Hi, and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a B-movie review, and I'll be having a look at the 2012 movie Rise of the Zombies. Now, in 2013, there was another film, an Indian film called Rise of the Zombie. So it's obviously a different film to that. There's quite a lot of these zombie films around, some of them have quite similar titles. So Rise of the Zombies, plural, was a asylum release starring Danny Trejo, I think the guy's name is, and it was a sort of an original film, although it's sort of alternate name is The Dead Walking, unlike, not unlike The Walking Dead you'll see there. So it's obviously meant to be a kind of following the sort of popularity of the Walking Dead TV show. And they actually produced, the Asylum produced another zombie film a year earlier, a Zombie Apocalypse 2012 I believe it was called. And I actually quite like that film. So this is a kind of in a similar sort of vein to that. So it's kind of more of the same. I don't think it's quite as good, if I have to say. To that one, I think the Zombie Apocalypse 2012 had a bit more original ideas in it. Although the story was fairly cliche. It did have some little bits that I thought were quite original. Whilst this one I didn't think had that quite as much. And also I think the story is a little bit more confused in this one. The kind of the crux of the story is there's a group of sort of, it starts straight away. So straight away there's no origin or anything like that. You're kind of in the thick of it with action, and it doesn't really stop from there. So you're kind of introduced to a group of characters who are sort of holed up on Alcatraz, and they think that's going to be ultimately a safe haven. But zombies keep seeming to sort of wash up on shore, and they're obviously it's an island. They're pretty much trapped there. And they see the video of this guy on sort of, I assume, the internet, and he thinks he's close to developing a cure. So they want to kind of go and track that down. So they have like a small sort of life raft that the majority of them want to go into the sort of city and try and track down this doctor. Whilst half the sort of people on the raft want to kind of just go out and try and find safety. One guy stays behind, and he's played by LeVar Burton, to try and sort of work on his own version of the cure. So when you get into the city, the kind of group splits off into two. One group looking for the doctor and the cure, the other group looking for just an escape ultimately. So it kind of follows those three sort of groups of people, the two groups of survivors and the one guy left on the island trying to sort of find his own cure. And obviously that kind of stories sort of intermingle throughout the film. So ultimately, it's not all that sort of original necessarily, and I did find that sometimes the kind of the ideas a little bit confusing about where people were going and what their kind of motivations were and where they wanted to go. I didn't think the film particularly did a great job of explaining the setup, and where it went straight in with the action. There's very little time for actually any sort of character building, so you kind of. You kind of don't really get to know the characters necessarily until you've kind of like halfway through the film. Now, I would say this film makes it look like Danny Trejo's a star. He's not in it all that much, I have to say. He's probably in it for about 25 minutes maybe. So, so he's not. I wouldn't say he's the main character of this film. But one thing I would say about this film, this is probably one of the most gory asylum films that I've seen. So the gore in this film is actually pretty damn strong, I would say, for this kind of like the sort of asylum, and it looks pretty damn effective, I have to say. So far more gory than the previous film, the Zombie Apocalypse 2012 one. And for the most part that I've seen on these asylum films, this to me is the goriest film that I've seen from them. It's possibly not the goriest zombie film ever, but for them it has some quite high levels and quite effective gore. The zombies all look pretty good, and the action is, I have to say, is fairly decent as well. Now, obviously, these asylum films are fairly low budget, so you do have quite a lot of the computer-generated sort of effects of like the city being on fire and things like that, and sort of wreckage all over the place. That's obviously they can't afford to have practical effects and things like that. Too much, so you do get a lot of the sort of CGI backgrounds and stuff like that. Now I can accept that because I appreciate this as a low budget film, but to me the kind of the main criticism of this, so I did find that the story a little bit incoherent. And I think it's possibly because just the way it started off. And it's great that you don't have, you don't have to wait long at all for the sort of action to happen. But I did find it a little bit kind of like, incoherent with the story. And a lot of these kind of like plot threads, they start them, and then they just sort of the people just end up getting killed, and the kind of their sort of story just is almost inconsequential. That you have before you kind of get to the main cast, you have a group of characters at the beginning. Spoiler alert here: the Doctor on the island just gets killed, and we never know whether he's kind of like his for cure would have ever worked. It's a zombie film. People are going to get killed, but there's no sort of sometimes payoff with what they're, the things they're working on. So it's you can kind of, I guess you can look past that if you just think, well, if there was a zombie attack, things are just going to get cut off halfway. But it's almost like that part of the story, that sort of his character could be completely cut out of the story. It wouldn't affect the main storyline at all. There you go. But it was a kind of a fun zombie movie, I have to say. I quite enjoyed it. I don't think it's one of the best low budget efforts, but I would certainly say if you're looking at the sort of a low budget zombie film as a whole, this is one of the better efforts. This is above average for that sort of type of thing. So I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. If you're a gore fan, you'll probably like this film. I'd say it's fairly gory. So check it out. Anyway, leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.